If you look at the economic charts from about 1930 to today,
Yeah.
there is this one line that goes almost straight up.
Productivity.
Exactly, productivity. We are exponentially more efficient at making things than we were a century ago.
Right. Technology did exactly what it was supposed to do.
Right. So if we're so efficient, why are we still working 40, 50?
Or 60.
Yeah, sometimes 60 hours a week.
That is the great economic mystery of our time, honestly.
Bruh.
By all logical metrics, we should be working significantly less.
Right. And this isn't just me complaining about a long week. John Maynard Keynes,
Economist.
probably the most famous economist of the 20th century,
Mm-hmm.
he looked at these growth rates back in 1930 and predicted that by the year 2000,
In countries like the UK and the US, at least.
right, in developed nations, we would be on a 15-hour work week.
A 15-hour week. Just imagine.
He actually thought our biggest problem would be boredom. Like figuring out what to do with all our free time.
It was a beautiful vision. The whole idea was that we would solve the economic problem of scarcity.
Right.
Once we could produce enough for everyone with minimal effort, the need for all that daily toil would just vanish.
But that clearly didn't happen.
No, it did not.
We have the robots, we have the AI, the internet, but the 15-hour week is just nowhere to be found.
Instead, we have a workforce that feels busier than ever.
So the mission for this deep dive today is to figure out where that free time went.
Did we just decide we love working, or?
Or is something else going on? Because to answer that, we are exploring a theory that is equal parts fascinating and honestly a little disturbing.
We are looking at the work of anthropologist David Graeber.
Specifically, his book, Bullshit Jobs, A Theory.
And we should clarify, we're going to dive deep into his arguments and the source material he provides.
Right. And before we get into the meat of it, I have to say the title is aggressive. It sounds like he's just venting. But Graeber isn't just talking about jobs I don't like. He is proposing a massive structural shift in capitalism that created an entire sector of employment that is effectively pointless.
He is. And to understand his argument, we have to sort of suspend what we think we know about how the market works.
Because if you stick to standard economic theory, what Graeber describes is basically impossible.
Because the market is supposed to be efficient.
Right, capitalism 101.
Exactly. In a competitive market, efficiency is the ultimate goal. A profit-seeking firm should never pay a human being a salary to do nothing.
That's just lighting money on fire.
Right. If a job doesn't contribute to the bottom line, a competitor should theoretically come along, cut that useless job, lower their prices, and put the first firm out of business.
You cut the fat.
And yet Graeber argues that millions of people are being paid, and often quite well, to do jobs that contribute absolutely nothing to the production of value.
In fact, he says if these jobs disappeared, the world might actually be a better place. That is a bold claim. So let's look at the evidence. Because this whole theory didn't start as a massive book with a bunch of research did it.
No, it started as a hunch.
Back in 2013.
Right. Graeber wrote a short essay for a radical magazine called Strike. He essentially just floated a trial balloon.
He suspected that despite all the rhetoric of job creators and efficiency, a huge chunk of the workforce secretly felt their daily labor was totally meaningless.
And he completely struck a nerve.
It was instant, wasn't
The
it?
website crashed.
Wow.
The essay was translated to more than a dozen languages within weeks. But the most interesting part was the feedback he got.
The confessions.
Yes. He didn't just get comments. He got hundreds of detailed confessionals from white-collar professionals.
I was looking through some of those in the source material. These aren't people working in factories or at service counters.
No, we're talking about corporate lawyers, HR consultants, PR researchers, academic administrators.
High status stuff.
Exactly. Which is why we have to be very careful with our definitions here. Graeber realized he needed to properly categorize this phenomena.
Right.
So he offers a provisional definition of a bullshit job. He defines it as a form of paid employment that is so completely pointless, unnecessary, or pernicious that even the employee cannot justify its existence.
But hold on. Pointless is a pretty subjective word.
It is.
Like, I might think a telemarketer is pointless because they annoy me, but they do generate sales for a company, so does that count?
That is the crucial part. It's not about whether you think their job is useless. It is about whether they think it's useless.
Oh, okay.
And usually part of the job description is that they have to pretend it isn't.
So it's the employee's own internal assessment of their work.
Correct. And Graeber points out we also need to distinguish a bullshit job from a quote-unquote shit job.
Which is a nuance I think a lot of people miss. I assume a shit job is just a genuinely bad job, low pay, terrible conditions.
Right. Think of cleaners or maybe agricultural laborers.
Yeah.
The work might be backbreaking. The pay might be terrible, and they might not be treated with any respect by society. But, and this is key, those jobs are useful.
Right. If the garbage collectors stop working, the city becomes unlivable in 3 days.
We absolutely need them.
Whereas a bullshit job
Is often the exact opposite. It's usually white collar. The pay is often quite good. You get benefits. You work in a nice climate-controlled office, and people at dinner parties are impressed when you tell them your title.
But you, the person doing it, you know a secret.
You know that if your entire department vanished tomorrow, it wouldn't matter.
Or maybe things would run even smoother.
Exactly.
That is a heavy psychological burden, though. To go into an office every single day, perform professionalism, and just know it's all a charade.
It's exhausting.
But I have to play devil's advocate here. Are we sure these people aren't just cynical? Like maybe they just don't understand how their little piece of the puzzle fits into the big corporate picture?
Graeber actually addresses that directly. He argues that in many cases, the absurdity is so blatant that you simply can't explain it away with big-picture logic.
And he uses a specific anecdote for this, right?
Yes, the story of Kurt.
Oh, the German military contractor. This story is wild.
It is a perfect example of what Graeber calls a paradigmatic case.
Set it up for us.
So Kurt works for a private personnel management firm. But his firm is a subcontractor to a logistics firm, which is a subcontractor to an IT firm, which is a subcontractor to the German military.
Okay, so we are already 3 layers deep in subcontracting.
Right.
That alone seems like a massive red flag for efficiency.
It gets much worse. Here is the actual workflow. Imagine a soldier in the German military needs to move his computer from one office to another.
Okay.
It is literally 5 meters down the hall.
In a rational world, the soldier unplugs it, walks 5 meters, and plugs it back in. Total cost is $0. Total time, maybe 2 minutes.
In Kurt's world, the soldier is forbidden from moving the equipment. He has to fill out a form. That form goes to the IT subcontractor. They approve it and send it to the logistics subcontractor. The logistics firm approves it and then requests personnel from Kurt's firm.
And this is where Kurt comes in.
Kurt gets the order. He has to get in his car, a rental, by the way, and drive to the barracks.
And he doesn't live close, does he?
No, Kurt lives hours away.
Yeah.
So he drives, let's say, 4 or 5 hours. He arrives at the barracks. He fills out paperwork just to get on base.
Okay.
He goes to the soldier's room.
Please don't tell me he just moves the computer.
He doesn't move it.
What?
He unplugs it. He puts it in the box. He seals the box. Then he has to call a guy from the logistics firm to come and physically carry the box 5 meters down the hall.
Because Kurt is IT personnel, he's not insured for transport.
Exactly.
You are kidding.
I am not. Then the logistics guy leaves. Kurt opens the box, takes the computer out, plugs it in, fills out a form confirming the job is done, gets a signature, and drives 5 hours home.
That is insane. So we have 2 people driving potentially hundreds of miles, wasting gas, wasting time, billing the government, what was it, 400 euros?
Something like that, yeah.
To do something a soldier could have done in 90 seconds.
And Kurt knows it. He is fully aware it's insanity. But that is his job.
Wow.
The structure of that contract creates work where none actually exists. If they just let the soldier move the computer, the GDP technically goes down because no money changed hands.
Right.
But by creating this bureaucratic nightmare, they have, quote-unquote, created jobs and generated economic activity.
That sounds like a glitch, though, like a really bad government contract. Is it really fair to extrapolate from Kurt to the entire global economy?
If it were just Kurt, maybe not. But look at the polling data Graeber cites.
That's a YouGov poll.
After the essay went viral, YouGov ran a poll in the UK. They asked a very simple question. Does your job make a meaningful contribution to the world?
I saw this in the notes. The numbers are just staggering.
37% said no.
37%.
37% of working adults believe their job made no meaningful contribution. Another 13% were unsure.
So basically half the workforce wasn't convinced their labor mattered at all?
And later, a poll in Holland found 40% of workers felt their jobs had no good reason to exist.
Okay, if 40% of the workforce is doing nothing necessary that completely upends the supply and demand model.
It really does.
If I'm a CEO and I'm looking at my balance sheet, why am I paying these people? Why hasn't the ruthless efficiency of capitalism fired that 40%?
This brings us to the absolute core of Graeber's theory. He argues that the economy has fundamentally shifted.
How so?
We aren't really in a classic capitalist production economy anymore. He says we've moved to something he calls managerial feudalism.
Managerial feudalism? That sounds like a contradiction. Feudalism is lords and peasants. Capitalism is markets and stocks. How do they mix?
Think about how a feudal lord maintained power back in the Middle Ages. It wasn't about selling products, it was about how many retainers you had.
Like how many people were in your court?
Exactly. How many footmen, how many ladies in waiting. Your power and your status were measured by the size of your entourage.
And Graeber is saying modern corporate management works the same way?
In many large organizations, yes.
Yeah.
If you are a mid-level executive, your status and often your salary is determined by how many people report to you.
Okay.
If you manage a team of 1, you're a nobody. If you manage a team of 20, you're a player.
So I have a built-in incentive to hire people regardless of whether there's actually work for them to do.
Precisely. You need an assistant. Then you need a strategist. Then you need a vice president of communications.
And then they need assistants.
It's empire building. The profit in these sectors doesn't always come from making better widgets. It comes from extracting rent and managing the distribution of resources.
So in that environment, efficiency in the sense of a lean workforce is actually a disadvantage for the manager who wants to climb the ladder.
Exactly. It creates this massive, bloated administrative layer.
The source material actually compares it to the Soviet Union, which is deeply ironic.
It is ironic.
We used to make fun of the Soviets for having 3 guys to sell 1 loaf of bread just to keep everyone employed.
The Soviet Union had a policy of full employment, so they literally had to make up jobs.
Right.
Graeber is suggesting that Western capitalism has accidentally arrived at the exact same destination, but via a completely different route.
Instead of state-mandated jobs, we have corporate-mandated bureaucracy.
We've seen an explosion in administrators, consultants, telemarketers, corporate lawyers, sectors that don't produce tangible goods, but rather manage the process of well-managing.
But surely at the very top, the private equity firms, the major shareholders, they must see this right. If they are as greedy as we assume, wouldn't they want to slash this administrative bloat to boost their dividends?
You would think so.
Eh.
But Graeber introduces a political dimension here, and he calls it an anti-conspiracy theory.
Why anti-conspiracy?
Because he's not saying there's a secret meeting in a smoke-filled room where the Illuminati decided to make up fake jobs.
Yeah, no shadowy cabals.
Exactly. He's saying there is a shared implicit understanding among the ruling class that a population with too much free time is politically dangerous.
Dangerous in what way? Like they'll just be lazy.
No, look at the 1960s and 70s. We were getting closer to that leisure society Keynes had predicted. And what happened?
Massive social unrest.
Right. People started questioning authority, demanding radical changes, protesting the status quo.
So Graeber suggests the political elite realized that a happy, productive population with free time is a threat to stability.
That's his argument. Keeping people busy, even if the work is utterly pointless, functions as a form of social control.
Because if you're working 40 or 50 hours a week and then you have to commute and manage your household,
you don't have the energy to organize a revolution. You simply don't have the time to rethink the structure of society.
It also ties into our morality, doesn't it? We have this deep Puritan work ethic that says if you aren't working hard, you are inherently a bad person.
Exactly. Idle hands are the devil's workshop. Politically, it is very easy to sell job creation as a universal good.
Right. No politician ever runs on a platform of we should eliminate meaningless jobs so people can work less.
Never. They run on more jobs.
Absolutely. Always more jobs.
It doesn't matter if those jobs are digging holes and filling them up again. Work is seen as a moral imperative in itself.
Which really leads us to the human cost of all this. Because we can talk about economics and politics all day, but for the person sitting in that cubicle dealing with what Graeber calls spiritual violence, it is a very personal struggle.
That phrase, spiritual violence, is really potent.
It is.
Humans are social animals.
Yes.
But we are also creatures who deeply want to affect the world. We want to be a cause. We want to see that our actions have a tangible result.
And a bullshit job just completely denies you that.
It gaslights you. It forces you to pretend that filing a report that literally no one will ever read is a vital contribution to the company.
And that disconnect creates anxiety, depression, and just a sense of profound emptiness.
It's not just boredom. It is a degradation of the self.
There is a story in the notes that perfectly captures this absurdity. It's funny, but it's also kind of tragic. This Spanish civil servant.
Ah, yes. The man who read Spinoza.
Walk us through this one because it sounds like an urban legend.
It's a true story. There was a civil servant in Spain working for a local water board. At some point, he realized that the tasks assigned to him were completely unnecessary.
Like if he didn't do them, nothing happened.
Exactly. So he just stopped going to the office.
For how long? Like a week.
6 years.
He didn't show up for work for 6 years and nobody noticed.
Nobody noticed.
Yeah.
He remained on the payroll. He collected his salary every month. But instead of sitting at his desk pretending to work, he stayed home and studied the philosopher Spinoza. He became an expert, actually.
So how did he finally get caught?
This is the punchline. He was due to receive an award for 20 years of loyal service.
You cannot make that up.
The management went to find him to give him the commemorative plaque, and they looked around and said, wait, has anyone actually seen him?
That is incredible, but it perfectly proves the point. If you can remove a person for 6 years and the water board continues to function perfectly, that job was 100% bullshit.
It was. But here is the darker side of that story that Graeber points out. When it came out, the public was absolutely furious. They called him a parasite.
Which touches on what Graeber calls moral envy.
Yes.
Envy. Who are we envious of in that situation?
Well, you would think we'd be angry at the system for creating the waste. But instead, society often directs its anger toward people with useful jobs when they demand better treatment.
Wait, unpack that for me. Why would we be angry at the useful people?
Think about the rhetoric when teachers or nurses or subway workers go on strike.
People get incredibly hostile.
Right. The underlying logic seems to be you get to do something real.
Yeah.
You get to teach children, or save lives, or drive the trains. You have noble work.
And that meaning is supposed to be a reward.
Exactly. The logic is, why should you also get good pay and benefits?
Oh, wow. It's like we believe suffering is the currency of work. Since the office worker suffers through meaninglessness to get a paycheck, they resent the nurse who actually finds meaning in what they do.
Precisely. It turns the working class against itself.
The bullshit classes.
Right? The middle managers, the administrators, they often identify with the wealthy because they share the same corporate office culture, even though they are miserable.
And they resent the blue-collar workers or the service workers who actually keep the world running.
It explains a lot of the political polarization we see today, honestly.
It really reframes the whole class warfare narrative. It's not just rich versus poor, it's the pointless versus the useful.
And that leads to Graeber's final thought experiment in the book. It's a way to test the value of any industry. He calls it the Vanish test.
Okay, let's run the simulation for you listening.
Imagine if an entire class of people simply vanished in a puff of smoke. Let's say all the nurses, garbage collectors, and mechanics disappeared tomorrow.
Absolute catastrophe. Immediately. Disease spreads, the injured die, the transport grid fails. Civilization pretty much collapses in a week.
Right. Now, imagine if all the private equity CEOs, lobbyists, telemarketers, and PR researchers vanished in a puff of smoke.
I mean, my phone would definitely stop ringing with spam calls.
Graeber suggests that not only would we not suffer a collapse, but the world might actually get tangibly better.
The air might be cleaner, the political system might be less corrupt, there would be less ambient anxiety.
It is a brutal metric.
It really is. It forces you to look in the mirror and ask, if I vanished, would the world break, or would it just breathe a sigh of relief?
It is a confronting question. But Graeber isn't asking it just to make people feel bad about their lives.
Right. What's the ultimate takeaway here?
He's asking it so we can stop pretending. We have the technology to work that 15-hour week Keynes predicted. We have the sheer abundance. We just need to stop inventing busy work to justify the way we distribute wealth.
So we've gone from the Keynes paradox to the mechanics of managerial feudalism, all the way to the guy reading Spinoza on the company dime.
It is a lot to process.
It is, but it certainly changes how you look at that massive stack of paperwork on your desk.
It does. And maybe recognizing the absurdity of it all is the very first step toward reclaiming some of that lost time.
Definitely something for you to think about the next time you're filling out a form, just to get permission to fill out another form. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.